They promised the documents would rewrite history, and they weren't wrong. Just not in the way anyone imagined.
Anybody could be on the list.
Anybody. That's the term she clung to. Because when your name appears 24 times inside the Jeffrey Epstein files, you need everyone to think it means absolutely nothing.
Okay. I wasn't his girlfriend. I wasn't his friend.
You were too old for him.
I was not only too old, but...
She wasn't just defensive, she was unraveling. And in that unraveling, she dropped a line that froze everyone at the table. You know what I would have to do to get on that plane? What would she have to do? And more disturbingly, who else was already doing it? The second Whoopi Goldberg tried to shield herself, she pushed open a door that leads straight to one of the most influential women on the planet. Her name isn't splashed across the headline, but maybe it should be. So let's rewind, because context is everything. When the Jeffrey Epstein files finally went public, the internet didn't just buzz, it detonated. Thousands of pages, hundreds of names, emails, flight manifests, Rolodex contacts, private exchanges. Records that had been locked away, sealed tight, and hidden from public eyes for years were suddenly available to anyone with Wi-Fi and a few spare hours. And within hours, a single name began climbing the trends, a name daytime television never saw coming. Whoopi Goldberg. Now before we unpack what Whoopi Goldberg actually said, and trust me, every word matters, we need to understand what those documents revealed, because that's where the real tension builds. According to the released records, Whoopi Goldberg's name surfaces roughly 24 times throughout the Jeffrey Epstein files. 24. That's not a casual reference. That's not a reporter casually dropping her name in passing. That suggests repeated contact, recurring communication threaded through multiple entries. And the most explosive detail? An email sent by Whoopi Goldberg's agent straight to Jeffrey Epstein's associates, pleading,
"Oh, please, I'm begging you. Whoopi Goldberg needs your jet to go to Monaco."
That's not dramatic framing. The exact term in the message was begging. Sit with that. Her representative typed begging into a formal appeal sent to one of the most infamous predators in modern American history. The route? New York to Nice, France. The reason? A charity gala, the White Feather Foundation ball tied to Julian Lennon, a round trip across the Atlantic aboard a private Gulfstream. Conservatively, that kind of flight costs at least $50,000. And Epstein's reply? No thanks. Except he barely spelled it right. Just know Jeffrey Epstein, a man who weaponized private jet access as currency, control, and leverage over some of the most powerful figures alive, saw Whoopi Goldberg's request and declined. That fact alone could have dominated headlines for days. But Whoopi Goldberg didn't retreat into silence. And that's when the story truly ignited. 2 weeks. That's how long The View said nothing after the files surfaced. 14 days of silence while her name ricocheted across social media, news panels, and whispered conversations nationwide. And then, finally, they addressed it live. Here's what matters about that moment. It didn't feel spontaneous. It wasn't raw. Rewatch the segment and you'll see it. The answers are polished. The pivots are effortless. The laughter lands precisely where it needs to, easing pressure before it can fully explode.
The story was about a bus.
But it's like, so...
That punchline was practiced. The bus joke suggesting Whoopi Goldberg rides public transit and would never need a billionaire's jet wasn't off the cuff. It was drafted, refined, and delivered on cue. We know that because it surfaced twice, word for word, in the same broadcast. That isn't improv. That's strategy. Someone crafted that line. Someone signed off on it. And then they executed it like choreography. But tucked between those polished diversions, Whoopi Goldberg let something slip. A line that didn't feel rehearsed. A line the attorneys likely didn't preview. A line that, if you listen closely, shifts the entire narrative. She said she wasn't the only one there.
You were on the island? I was, apparently, I don't know. They said I was on the island. They said, I'm like, I don't go anywhere.
She denies the island. Fine, but pay attention to the language. She never says no one was there. She never calls the island narrative fiction. She says she doesn't go anywhere. That's a personal rejection, not a universal one. In legal and rhetorical terms, that distinction matters. She moved in those circles. The charity gala alone, the same one her agent was begging for jet access to, places her inside the very social orbit where Jeffrey Epstein thrived. And the White Feather Foundation's own site didn't just acknowledge the event, it celebrated it. Whoopi Goldberg flew in, photos and all. So yes, she was there. Maybe not on the island. Maybe not in the most incriminating locations. But she existed within that world. She was adjacent. And when she finally spoke, truly spoke, she did something no one anticipated. She shifted the spotlight sideways. This is the detail mainstream coverage skimmed over because everyone fixated on the jet, on the no thanks, on the irony of Jeffrey Epstein declining Whoopi Goldberg's request. But she wasn't the only figure orbiting those spaces. She attended private parties, elite fundraisers, invitation-only events, the kind that demand the right surname and the right connections just to cross the threshold. And inside those rooms, there were individuals far more influential than Whoopi Goldberg. Not just guests, architects, gatekeepers, facilitators, people whose reputations were so vast that they made Jeffrey Epstein's network appear respectable to anyone watching from the outside. Now we have to say the name that barely trended: Oprah Winfrey. Because while Whoopi Goldberg's name drew the headlines, Oprah Winfrey's ties to the Jeffrey Epstein universe were sitting in the same documents. Subtle, less sensational, but potentially far more foundational.
Now, Oprah is limited in the context of the files, but there is clear collusion between Oprah and Jeffrey.
Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, whose name is firmly embedded within the Jeffrey Epstein files, reached out to him directly right before walking onto Oprah Winfrey's set. The email wasn't subtle. It was intentional. She made sure Jeffrey Epstein knew she was scheduled to sit down with Oprah Winfrey. She requested his input on how to respond to any mention of him. In other words, she was aligning her narrative with Jeffrey Epstein before appearing opposite one of the most influential media figures on Earth.
Sarah sent Epstein an email saying, I want to make sure you're aware I'm going on Oprah tomorrow. I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of this and seek your advice on how you want me to answer.
She was asking Jeffrey Epstein how he preferred she respond to Oprah Winfrey's questions. That means the Oprah Winfrey interview millions watched as accountability may have been quietly influenced by Jeffrey Epstein behind the curtain. And he answered. He drafted the response himself, polished it, sent it back, that Jeffrey Epstein had been unfairly labeled a pedophile by tabloids, that he'd paid his debt and sought forgiveness. Those words originated with him. They echoed on Oprah Winfrey's stage. And nowhere in the filings, the coverage, or the fallout did Oprah Winfrey address that her sit-down with Sarah Ferguson might have been subtly aligned with the very man under scrutiny. Now we have to be exact. This isn't about condemning someone for mere association. Joe Rogan framed that correctly. Fair is fair. But Joe Rogan also pressed another point: transparency. Why do the same elite names orbit one of the darkest scandals in modern history? Why does the picture still feel unfinished? Apply that lens to Oprah Winfrey and coincidence starts to feel thin. Harvey Weinstein. For years, she was publicly warm with him, premieres, industry galas, the kind of proximity that, in hindsight, raises uncomfortable timing questions. Seal said it plainly: you were part of the problem for decades, yet now they want you to be the solution. R. Kelly, Diddy, Harvey Weinstein, and now the Jeffrey Epstein adjacency through the Sarah Ferguson email. Individually explainable. Collectively, a pattern serious observers won't dismiss. And what did Oprah Winfrey's proximity provide? Jeffrey Epstein wasn't curating famous names for vanity. The files and testimony outlined deliberate reputation laundering after his 2008 arrest. That was the mechanism. Attached to credibility. Use trust as armor. In that light, the Sarah Ferguson email isn't just awkward diplomacy. It's documented evidence of Jeffrey Epstein's network brushing directly against Oprah Winfrey's platform and shaping narrative from within. Whoopi Goldberg admitted adjacency, but Oprah Winfrey's adjacency appears deeper, more documented, more structural, and less examined. Consider this. Dave Chappelle walked away from $50 million and was labeled irrational. At the time, Oprah Winfrey amplified the idea he was unstable, that he'd squandered something irreplaceable. It fit neatly. When someone rejects the money and exits the system needs everyone else to see that person as the problem. Now that moment looks different. Dave Chappelle didn't just leave a contract, he stepped away from an ecosystem. And Oprah Winfrey, intentionally or not, was part of the machinery that framed him as foolish. Meanwhile, Whoopi Goldberg sat at the View desk for 2 weeks in silence. When she finally spoke, prepared, advised, bus joke loaded, she still let something slip that couldn't be scripted away. She said she wasn't alone in those rooms. She suggested attention belonged elsewhere. She implied others were far more embedded than she ever was. She never said Oprah Winfrey's name. She didn't need to. She gestured upward and sideways at once, invoking Donald Trump with one hand while hinting at other powerful figures with the other. But the record, the Sarah Ferguson email, the coordinated interview, the recurring overlap between Oprah Winfrey's world and Jeffrey Epstein's network keeps dragging the focus back. Jeffrey Epstein died before he could speak. Yet, according to FBI records within the newly released documents, he was close. Very close to...
On July 29, 2019, his lawyers and the federal prosecutors in this case, in very general terms, discussed the possibility of a resolution of the case and the possibility of the defendant's cooperation.
He was prepared to identify names. That's what cooperation signifies in a federal case of that scale. You don't negotiate cooperation to debate trivialities. You cooperate when you possess information about others, powerful others, individuals whose exposure could meaningfully lessen your own punishment. And then the cameras failed. The guards drifted off, and Jeffrey Epstein was discovered dead inside a maximum security federal facility with fractures in his neck that medical experts said aligned more with strangulation than with the official conclusion.
He could have been working for the CIA. He could have been a guy who was on his own, but also working with them, right? Like a guy that they used, but they never fully endorsed.
Like 51, if Jeffrey Epstein functioned as an asset, a managed node inside a broader intelligence and influence web, then the figures orbiting him weren't just celebrities who brushed shoulders with the wrong man. They may have been components in a structure built to circulate selective information, shield specific individuals, and bury certain truths beyond reach. Whoopi Goldberg reacted sharply when her name surfaced because she grasped, at least in part, what closeness to that machine suggests. And in that reaction, she hinted at something larger than herself. A structure she moved within but didn't design. A sphere she entered but didn't control. A reality that Oprah Winfrey helped present as ordinary. Whoopi Goldberg's agent pleaded for access to a jet. Jeffrey Epstein declined. Whoopi Goldberg's name surfaced 24 times. She appeared on air with rehearsed humor and legal framing, attempting to dissolve the narrative. But in trying to contain it, she inadvertently reinforced what many had already inferred, that she wasn't alone in those rooms, that others stood higher in that hierarchy. Individuals with deeper reach, broader leverage, and far greater risk. The Sarah Ferguson email exists. The coordination surrounding the Oprah Winfrey interview is documented. And the recurring presence of powerful names alongside Jeffrey Epstein's network, followed by noticeably softer scrutiny compared to others, remains a recorded and verifiable pattern. We're told to trust the headlines, trust the official conclusions, trust that justice was served. But if that were true, why does this story still feel unfinished? Why does it still feel incomplete? Because the documents keep leading back to rooms crowded with influence. And the most influential figures in those rooms possess the sharpest mechanisms for keeping their names out of bold print. Whoopi Goldberg's name made the headlines, and she's enraged by it. But pay attention to what she said in that anger. Notice where she gestured. Notice the implication about who else occupied those spaces, who else navigated those circles with far greater ease and far greater insulation than she ever enjoyed. The monster, she says, is hiding, and so is the hiding place. And if you trace the filings, the emails, the synchronized interviews, the reputation scrubbing, and layers of protection, it starts to resemble the most trusted brand in American media. That isn't a verdict. It's a question. And it's one no one on daytime television is eager to pose, but we just did.